Welcome, everyone, to the Andor as Art podcast, a limited short series podcast just for Andor Season 2. My name is Luke Travers, literature educator and researcher, and I'm here with my good friend and frequent art and literature discussion partner, Joseph Tabinkin. Hi, Joseph.
Hello.
All right. So we are both really excited to dive into chapter one, what I'm calling chapter one, the first 3 episodes of the 12 episode season 2 of Andor. So if you're listening to this or watching this, we are anticipating that you have watched these first 3 episodes. So there will be spoilers for these first 3 episodes. And we're also anticipating that you've watched season 1. This podcast series that I'm doing is going to be just for season 2, and it will come out weekly, and still figuring out exactly how that's going to work. But look for more of these episodes. I'm calling this Andor as Art, and I want to give you some parameters for what you're listening to here. This is not a fandom podcast. I like Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but I don't know much about it. I can tell you what a Wookiee is, but that's basically it. So don't come here looking for all the lore that feeds into the story. In fact, I've been doing my best to avoid the lore because I don't know. I don't want to know what the established canon is for the Gormans or whatever it is. I want that to seep through the story that Tony Gilroy is telling. And I'm calling it Andor as art. And by art, I mean great art, not specifically the visual arts, but art as a whole, as art being literature. And it occurred to me when I saw this survey just a day or two ago on the socials, asking, okay, what is the greatest work of literature in the 20th century, since we're at the 25-year mark, or 21st century, since 2020, 2000 to 2025. And I was racking my brain to think of works of literature, and the only thing that I could really think of for myself, and I'm a literature teacher for 20 years, Andor season 1 was my answer for what is the greatest work of literature in the 21st century. Now, I've talked a little bit about this before. I wrote an article comparing Andor season 1 to 19th century literature. There'll be a link for that if you want to find out more about that. Joseph and I recorded another podcast episode getting into Andor season 1, the ideas and why we think of it as great art. And then I recently wrote an article priming or previewing season 2, not with specific details or specifics of following storylines, but the mental approach or the intellectual approach to take while you are watching, the kinds of bigger picture questions to ask yourself that you might not ask yourself for other works of literature or movies or TV, but that Tony Gilroy and the creators of Andor have set up that you can search for. So I'm barely bringing any context of knowledge to my deeper understanding of Andor. It's, for me, all in the text. And that's going to be a lot of our discussion, I think, as we try to tease out and figure out what is going on in this complex, rich story. And I'll have a few more things to say about what to look for in season 2. But I want to start off first, Joseph, with just how you watched the first 3 episodes. What was it like for you to get back into the Andor universe after 3 years? What were your first impressions of it? Just in general, how did you feel?
It felt like Andor, like the same universe, same world. Like it felt like we were jumping right back into it. And so my expectations were, okay, I'm excited to see where this goes. I wasn't expecting, because in Andor season 1, it was a bit of a slow burn to start. And I think, as you've noted in other podcasts, these threads get planted that weave together ultimately to something really special. So it was fun to have a different set of expectations now, yet immediate gratification that, okay, we're in the same world. They haven't like, sometimes you see with shows, they'll have some success and then it just goes into a different direction and doesn't live up to it. But so far it feels like it's living up to season one, at least so far. Stylistically, everything, the dialogue, it all just feels similar, and so it makes me excited. I don't know if there's anything that there's lots of stuff. There's some details that really caught my interest, but
Hmm.
I wasn't. I'm not expecting the best to have happened yet,
Hmm.
and I'm
Yeah.
excited to see the rest of it and come back and rewatch these
Yeah.
first three.
Yeah.
And because I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying not to overanalyze it because I couldn't have anticipated in season one what was significant until you see the whole arc. So I'm trying to, and yet a lot of those details were intentionally planted to make the rest of that season significant. So I'm kind of letting myself go along with the ride with the confidence that, hey, I'm in the same place. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm, you know, I'm not, I'm not putting my trust in the wrong person.
All right. Well, I had the same kind of sensation you did. Like I'm describing it as like getting back into this warm bath that I haven't been into for a while, and yet at the same time it feels different, but it feels familiar. These are the same characters, but yeah, I've watched Andor season one multiple times, and it was like, okay, I'm watching Andor season one again, but no, whoa, things are different. And like you, for season one, those first three episodes are really slow for me. It just takes place on one planet, and it's really just starting kind of the story of Cassian, and we don't really get many intense plot developments until the season keeps going. This one, these first three episodes immediately throw a lot of curveballs right off the bat. I think they're like five or six different planets instead of just one that we're on. We've got multiple story threads that are going on, and they're not all intertwining. And I think that's maybe what you're referring to right now. We're still kind of setting up um, these different stories that, if as we learned from season one, we're going to expect to converge and to intertwine, but they're still the beginnings where they're starting to spread out across each other or away from each other. So I we're thinking about recording this yesterday, and it would be like I was thinking of it like an instant reaction podcast. So after just having watched, and then here are immediate reactions. I've watched it a second time, and uh and so I'll tell you about my first impressions watching it the first time, and then I think getting into like the rewatch and the thinking more deeply about it. But that first one was like going into the water, into the warm water. I had a couple glasses of wine. I'm just gonna swim in here and just react to things. And there were a lot of highlights, and there were a lot of confusions I had, and I like, whoa, what is this? So I was kind of all over the place
Mm.
with it, and then rewatching afterwards, I had the opportunity a little bit like you did to pick out some ideas or that you're thinking about doing for the rest of the season. I had the opportunity to kind of do that for the first three episodes, to pick out ideas and to see some bigger themes that are really, really drawn so beautifully. And I
Mm.
feel Joseph, like I'm catching up to the show. Like it's all there, and it's taking me a while to see it, but when I see it, it's like, oh yeah, that's all there. So I feel dumb watching the show the second time around. Okay, but I
I
want to start
think
off with.
Andor is one of those shows. I don't think it lends itself to instant reaction because it is so full. And to your point, season two starts off much more broad in scope. I was actually a little worried in episode one because of how many different threads they were planting right off the bat. would I be able to keep track of all of it? But I was surprised that by the end of season three, okay, I know where everything is. I'm hooked on all of these threads. Um, and so the more time I have to think about it, the more I enjoy it, the more things I notice. So
Yeah.
it's just like I think it would be a disservice to it to do an instant reaction.
Well, let me. You know what, Joseph? I want to do instant. I want to do
Okay.
maybe highlights as you're watching through. Kind of what are the scenes? What are the moments that you said, "Oh my goodness, that's great." Can we start with that? Like those particular instances. I'll give you one right off the bat. Something I have not laughed so hard, and this is just kind of a fifth tier plot thread, but I've not laughed so hard at a TV show in a long time as I did with Cyril's mother coming to have dinner with he and Didra.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the sense of that, that's a good way to put it. Um, there are certainly things that were immediately entertaining. There are moments that I won't be able to appreciate fully until
Yeah,
I won't be able to fully react to, I think is what I was getting at from
yeah,
the art perspective.
yeah,
But oh yeah, like the first few scenes were hysterical and intense. Like I know we'll probably talk about Andor's speech at the beginning, little mini speech at the beginning. Um, that was hooked me. The comedy of him trying to escape in the ship was hysterical. Um, yeah, I love the interactions of um Deidre and the mom and Cyril, like all of that. Even Deidre and Cyril before the mom got there, when you like, it was just like a very delightful surprise to find that they're living together, and then I just
what a
found
delightful! You're shipping Dedra and Cyril. You're excited for that the new romantic comedy.
I think it was I was curious what would happen to them
Yeah,
post season one, and I'm super fascinated to see the dynamic, like get more glimpses in
yeah,
the relationship. I heard some really bad takes about their relationship, and I just don't think capture probably what the essence will be. And so I'm very interested. I just loved. I found the mom to be in season one an incredible character, and so to see her back and some of the dynamic with Deidre was really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Maybe we might get back into that scene a little bit later. So you've got the opening speech by Cassian to Naya, the very nervous imperial tech worker there. You've got the any other particular kind of like, oh, that's fun. That I like, and I'm enjoying that moment. I'll give
I
you a
mean,
couple. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, you go, you go.
Okay, so um, for me, Perrin's speech during the wedding,
Mm,
it was surprising, and I was like, you know what? Is this something that I completely agree with?
mm.
It almost felt inspiring, and it's coming from Perrin, this character that I just remember kind of enjoying loathing in season one. So that's something I've that really hit me in my first watching. And then also, oh, the final dance sequence. So one thing that in season one, each arc ends with a kind of community kind of choral. So at the after the first three episodes, the climax of the first episode comes with like everybody ringing the bells, and then you've got the an Aldani, you've got the chanting of the people of the indigenous people in Aldani, and then you've got the one way out chanting in the prison. So you've got these kind of. I was looking for what is going to be the musical climax of the third episode, and that the wedding dance sequence with the that kind of disco music that was on the Miami Beach Planet, and then Mon Mothma going kind of having this crazy out of body. I'm tortured and I'm going to get it all out in this dance, and that permeates in the sound throughout the galaxy for the other storylines as well. So I love that. Those are just like on
The
my first
other
watching.
thing,
Those were the things I reacted to.
yeah, the other thing I was on the lookout for that I really enjoyed about season one were the details. Um, I mentioned this in our last podcast, but I love how it takes this really big universe that we've been exposed to in Star
Yeah.
Wars that in some way was absent details. And even like here's one I noticed in episode one. The details on the TIE fighter. Just the you could see the missiles and the gun turrets and when we've been exposed to TIE fighters in they're little like models that they're holding from strings. Like I think that's how George Lucas filmed them, right? Like zooming around, like it's little paper mache things that they made that you don't ever get a close up on, that you're not supposed to really see into
Mm.
this world at a detailed level. And I think that's one of the things I really loved about season one is you're zooming into the to all of the details. Now that's not the most significant. It was just like that's a little thing, but I
I
think
love
it
that too.
speaks to
Yeah. Yeah.
the attention to detail that's throughout the show. And so everything from the little hike they take, like the like all like you have to think about this. This is not a universe. It's not a story set in our universe with traditions and customs and ideas that you could pull from and borrow from to drive your story. All of this has to be invented. And so there's something really delightful about that aspect of all of the creation that he's done to fill this out, all the Chandril and
I mean,
customs.
when the groom pulls out the knife, I'm wondering what he's going to do with it. It's to cut the braid
Yeah.
of his betrothed as part of the ceremony. When they're having that secret conference with Krennic, who's like first thing he does is put this propaganda video on, or this
Yeah,
travel
the
video
Gorman yeah.
of Gormand, and we're learning about the spiders that make this twill, and they're called out by this big horn. Yeah, what's all the crazy detail that makes me feel like I am in a new place.
And then also from the art perspective, the details. Like one scene that just I just reminded of is it was a almost a throwaway passing shot, I think. It was like as the camera was getting to Mon Mothma, if I recall. There's a great scene where what's her daughter's name? Lita? Is that her
Lita,
daughter?
yeah,
Lita's leading her friends, like where are they going? And then the dress is hanging.
yeah,
And it's just such a like, I got married recently and just that, moment of revealing something special to your bridesmaids or groomsmen or something, like just seeing that excitement, that youthful excitement of like, this is my wedding weekend or day or whatever. And
yeah.
just little touches like that to build some of the emotional.
And in the
Uh,
middle of that wedding weekend, you've got Mon Mothma, uh, who is experiencing some of the greatest torment of her life.
mm,
So, um, let's start kind of diving into the story itself. And we can start at the very beginning, that scene that hooked you. And I think that's the because we're talking about speeches that we enjoyed. I think that's the speech that you picked out. Is that the speech you picked out? Cassian's speech to the reluctant and nervous tech worker who he's brought into, or he's convincing to help him steal this TIE fighter. So, Joseph, I'm wondering if you, because I love that speech too. And there are many reasons I love it, but I think it'll be good to kind of hear it first, and then to talk about its meaning and its significance, and I think a very, very important significance. Would you like to read it out loud first, Joseph?
yeah, it's funny because we both independently transcribed the speech.
Yeah.
And when you shared your document version, I laughed because you even started in the same spot that I did with her asking if I died tonight, was it worth it?
Yeah.
So I'll read out the speech. That's the tech worker's question to Andor. This is his response. This makes it worth it. This, right now, being here at the moment you step into the circle. Look at me. You made this decision long ago. The Empire cannot win. You'll never feel right unless you're doing what you can to stop them. You're coming home to yourself. You become more than your fear. Let that protect you. And my instant reaction was, oh, Nemec. Like, this is Nemec speaking through Andor.
Mm.
Um, and what's nice about that sequence is you get a little bit of old Andor in it. Like one of my favorite interactions of season one is when Nemec is confessing to Andor how nervous he's feeling, and Andor kind of reassures him, um, it's okay. You're not going to feel tired later on. Like like Andor's been, he's got the experience, but
Yeah.
not the idealism.
Yeah.
Um, Here you're getting, and maybe this just occurred to me. Maybe this is what Andor's mom was referring to when she said, as soon as he gets that idealism, he'll be an unstoppable force. Because she has the experience and the skill and the talent, and you combine that with the
Yeah.
idealism now, and here you're seeing it as he's now not using the exact words, but you can see Nemec's ideal in it. Because Nemec talks about um, freedom being the natural state.
Yeah.
Um, how, the decision being made long ago, which I think that's a really significant line to me that will have implications for when we talk about what I think the conflict is. Um, but Nemec talks a lot about people who, not a lot, but in his manifesto at the end, he talks about how there are battalions all over the universe who have signed up and they don't even know it yet. I think the implication is they've had terrible things done to them
Mhm.
and they don't realize that they will eventually be part of the rebellion. And Andor's echoing that sentiment is like your spirit, like you know that this isn't unjust and you will have to fight against it. So all of that was just for me, oh, Andor embodying Nemec.
Uh, so I really like that. I'm glad you brought up Nemec again, and this idea that Andor is taking what he's learned from his mother, from Nemec, and now he's become the one who's inspiring someone else. And there's the two sentences that really struck me. And on more thought, I was starting to see more and more of the meaning of it. The two sentences are, you'll never feel right unless you're doing what you can to stop them. You're coming home to yourself. And this is these are the first words. These are the first lines that Andor says in a kind of prelude to the first episode. And for me, that was a button on season one.
Mm,
Season one, as we've talked a little bit about Joseph, is Cassian's journey to figuring out that he does want to give his life for the rebel cause. This is what Cassian did. He is always, since he was a kid, he has been an enemy of the Empire. And at the end of season one, he comes home to himself, literally coming back to Ferrex and coming
mm,
back to what it is to be him. This is a fight that he picked a long time ago and he's been avoiding it and he knows it's right. And now he knows it's right and he is at peace. The way he delivers his speeches with such compassion and certainty. This is the different Cassian from last season. This is not a conflicted Cassian. This is a self-assured, heroic man. And when he tells her, "You're coming home to yourself," by taking this action, you are now your true self by defying the Empire and risking your life and maybe dying. Be at peace with that because you are now you. That's what we saw with Cassian. And there's one more little bit that I think I'm going to highlight it right now, but I think it'll come back later on. And this is um, when I've talked a little bit about in that article about the motifs, the kind of key concepts or terms that recur that you can kind of grab onto and say, okay, this is an important concept that's going to animate characters' motivations and choices or shed light on the story. The key term here is circle. When he tells her the thing that is worth it is not that we're gonna steal this TIE fighter or we're gonna put a
mm,
dagger in the eye of the Empire. It's us now bonding together. This is, well, just to repeat those lines, this makes it worth it. This right now, being here at the moment you step into the circle,
mm.
that you have found your better self, us together now being ourselves ready to fight this empire. And that word circle, I think, is one of these key motifs. Like last season, it was mirror, or a couple of others too.
Very interesting. That adds confirmation to what I think the essential arc of this season is going to be.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. So you've got a thought about, because this is something I'm
Really
looking
quickly on
for.
circles, though, I'm sure you picked up on this. I didn't. There's a very significant circle later on at the wedding scene, right, where they step into the circle. So,
Yeah. Circle is
there's.
mentioned twice later on at the wedding scene when the groom says, will you come into my circle? Part of the Chandrilian custom of the wedding, of now there's a new circle forming with the husband and wife. And also there's in the same first episode, not long after Cassian tells Naya, this moment you're coming into our circle, circle is referred to again. Krennic and his secret circle. We are part of a secret circle. And all these hand selected imperial officers who were there in this secret meeting, he uses that word circle to describe their relationship to each other.
Mm.
So we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. But I want to ask you now. So Joseph, what is your sense, your premise right now for the central question of the season?
So I think season one planted two questions, two important questions. One is an individual journey to rebellion, right? How does somebody sign
Mhm.
up for this thing
Yeah,
embodied in Andor? But it also plants the seed of um, how to coalesce a rebellion or unite a rebellion. You see in season one a lot of factions already that are not resolved. You have oh man, his name just escaped me. Um,
Saul Guerrera.
Sal Guerrera, and then we know about the other one that they ultimately sacrifice, and those are just
Yeah,
two.
Anton Krieger.
Craig Krieger, yeah. We get a resolution sort of to the first question in terms of we see Andor's journey to the rebellion. We see what that looks like, how a rebellion awakes in a person and what gets them through the door. One of the most interesting things I've been reflecting on is the time spent on, I think it's Yevon, um, with when Andor gets captured, right? He comes to
Yeah,
this rendezvous point, and there are people in there, and you do discover they are part of the rebellion,
yeah,
but they are again one of these factions that Andor
yeah.
and Luthen have been supplying, and but they're and what struck me about it was how amateurish they were, how disorganized, how chaotic.
I was frankly kind of frustrated watching that part. Just it made me think of like being in a classroom as a teacher and I can't manage the students, or like being at recess with students who are going crazy and like, oh no, why are you so out of control? I was
But
getting, yeah, frustrated.
but they had energy and um like passion towards this thing, though. So I thought it was significant because in that little microcosm was like this in between stage, right? So the, you look how young they all were.
Hmm.
We don't know a ton about them, what they were doing, how they got there, but they're not prepared. They're not like they couldn't take on the Empire. You couldn't imagine them like successfully rebelling.
They turn on themselves. They
They turn
break up
themselves.
into two factions, fighting each
Yeah,
other, willing to kill each other.
it is not focused, right? And um, to me, that's like okay. Nemec talks about the awakenings that will happen.
Hmm.
These are like the early morning yawns kind of thing. Like these are the first. They just woke up, and we know. I don't think it's spoiler, but we know where this arc is going ultimately. By the end of this, we're going into Rogue One, and by the time Rogue One happens, in Rogue One,
So yeah, you can even go even further. You can think of okay, this is getting to Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker, and
No, but specifically about Rogue One is
okay, hold on. All right,
we.
so for one moment here, because I think I do want to just announce a little spoiler warning. If you haven't seen Rogue One,
Mm,
um, uh, skip ahead a little bit. All right, Joseph.
yeah, and it's not a huge spoiler, but like in Rogue One, the rebellion has a fleet, right? There's that scene at the end of the movie where the
Yeah,
fleet shows up,
yeah,
right? Not like a few ships, not Andor on his own or Luthen coming to save the day. An entire fleet shows up with lots of ships and bombers and X-wings and stuff. So we know by the end of this arc,
yeah,
you're going to have a cohesive rebellion that
yeah.
ultimately is going to be able to take on the Death Star and mount an attack. They're not a huge army at the size of the Empire or anything, but like they are a cohesive unit. And so to me, that's this arc we're going to be trying. Like I'm really interested to see
I love it.
is
I love it.
how does Luthen, with Andor's help, Luthen clearly is at the center of things. Like in season one, you see him supplying, dealing, like he's the go-between. Saul Guerrero and Krieger hate each other. It's clear they don't want to work together. Luthen already suggests like he's trying to get them to work together. He is trying to turn this ragtag band of amateurs into a actual rebellion that is an army and a cohesive unit. And I think we got the seeds of that here, right? We're now we're seeing that and we it has to be resolved. Like we have to see that in this season because we know they do figure it out. And so, how do you convince somebody like Saul Guerrera, like this Maya person, presumably, who are idealistic in their own way, but have different versions of what rebellion looks like? How are you going to convince them to unite and fight together? And how are you going to coordinate this energy and direct it? So that's my
No, I love it. And I've got the same sense of a broad question. Um, and you mentioned Yavin as the planet, and I had to look it up because I don't remember if it was even mentioned as a. Did it say like in subtitle that this was the planet Yavin?
it might be
Bec
because the pyramids at the end, that
exactly.
is where the rebel base ends
And
up.
that was a callback. And I'm not looking for Easter eggs, but that was an Easter egg that adds that kind of meaning because guess where in Star Wars Episode 4 where the rebel base is? It's there on Yavin. That's where they coordinate the attack on the Death Star. That's where a unified rebellion does it. So we're getting kind of a hint at how far they've got to come.
Right.
They've got to go in order
This
to get
place
to
where
the
you have
point
this
where
mini civil war is eventually the same place where I'm sorry, I'm just reading the speech again, and there's so many details in there that set up, and maybe I'm projecting my theory onto it, but the circle concept,
yeah,
right, plays into
absolutely,
that. Where,
absolutely.
okay, how do we bring everyone into this circle? But also, I wonder if this absolute of the empire cannot win is what they ultimately will do the convincing,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
That the empire cannot win is is the like that's pretty definitive. That's like that's all that matters. You
So
cannot
how is
allow them
that
to.
going to be communicated to people who are more worried about whether or not they're the boss or of their tribe or whether or not somebody was a coward or not? And then I want to extrapolate because I think there's more dysfunction in this nascent rebellion than just what was happening with this Maya Pei brigade. So this was that whole opening scene where Cassian is having trouble with the TIE fighter. He like gets in there. He's like, "What the heck is this?" And we think he's gonna blast out of there, heroically. But then it like backs up, and then he's like, he has such a struggle, and he doesn't know how to fly it. After he is able to escape from that group of dysfunctional rebels, he's like drifting in space and he gets a hold of Clea and he tells her, "Hey, Clea, I I wasn't trained to fly this TIE fighter. Did you know this? The pickup was compromised. Did you know this? This has not gone to plan." he even his mission from the very beginning, and what we see is like his like the craziness of the TIE fighter scene was part of this infancy of the rebellion that is so dysfunctional. It's not very good. Even to change scenes, even Luthen and Clea showing up at the wedding and their concern for Tay Kolma and their kind of inability to kind of keep up with what is going on elsewhere. This this is a pretty crappy organization. Lots of
One thing
holes
that's
in it.
interesting though is through season one and season two, Cassian's always very aware of that. And it never comes off to me as arrogance,
Yeah.
right? Which is interesting. Like even from like the first heist planning,
Yeah,
he
exactly.
asks really important questions.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is like sometimes you need to just do things. Like sometimes you do need to you can't you can over prepare too much. But he does have a lot of experience that informs the types of things he thinks are not being done properly.
Mhm.
I'll need to think about that more, but I do I want to be on the lookout for how influential he is to professionalizing the
Yeah, and he's trying. Then that was the tension that I liked from that scene where you're like with Cassian, like these are doofuses, and he says something simple like, "Hey, it might be a good idea to get that tarp out to like save some of this rainwater that's coming down." Oh, have you guys thought of putting up a perimeter? It's gotten really silent over there. You're like, oh yeah, perimeter, sure. So he's trying to be patient, but he's also seeing the futility of it, and that's why he just bails out of there. And so we've got this dysfunction. I want to change a little bit directions here. Well, okay, well, just one quick thing of Cassian's conflict. So it's interesting, real for your
oh
kind of
yes, I have one
overarching
thing too.
question, your overarching question about the rebellion. Will it be unified, or how will it be unified, and how will Cassian help to unify it? Because he seems to be taking on a leadership role right there. He's just observing how dysfunctional things are. And what's interesting to me right now is we don't have an inner conflict for Cassian. And
I think
the
we do.
okay. So let me set that up by what I mean, and you can point out where there is one. So in season one, it's immediately apparent that the inner conflict is this is somebody who, and especially comes in through Luthen, who's trying to recruit him in episode 3 of season one. And it's like, okay, um, I don't want to join this rebellion. I want to get out of here. I'm on the run. I want to go to a comfortable planet. And he's got to work things out within himself with the help of others, with the help of mirrors along the way. But the climax of and the complete resolution of the story is when he comes in and he's made his decision and come at peace, that he's come home to his decision that he's going to fight the Empire. All right. Now you're saying that there is the suggestion of internal conflict. What is that?
His attachments.
Ah,
He and you already see him lose one in these first three episodes. And I think that is going to be a tragic but ultimate arc we have to follow is just noticing significant. So first of all, a backdrop of a lot of the conflict is flat, like going back to this green planet where Bix and what's his friend Brasso
yeah,
and the droid and the other guy are. These are his friends, his maybe romantic partner. He's
yeah,
still, he's season one kind of alluded to him being all in for the rebellion, but he still has values that and people that he wants to protect. And I think the most like significant decision that he's
yeah,
made so far is he's in this TIE fighter. He's being
yeah,
asked by Clea to wait. He finds out that they're in trouble. He takes this stolen property that they've risked a lot to get for some reason, I'm sure that's important. And he goes to the Green Planet to save
yeah.
them. And so he still has attachments and he
He
is
just
still
cuts
in
her
direct,
off. He cuts her
cuts
off
her
like I'm
off.
doing to you right now. He cuts her off in the middle of the radio contact and then just full throttle. I've got to
Yeah,
get there. It's instinctive. What?
yeah.
They're in trouble. Imperials are there. forget the cause, forget the mission, forget the fact that I've, got this TIE fighter for the rebellion. No, no, no. I need to save Bix. I need to save Brasso.
It's a really interesting conflict because some people's journey to rebellion is they lose everything, and so they have nothing left to lose, and they want to focus that energy on the people that took it from them, the Empire. Now, what is the rebellion if not to liberate your values, if not to create a
Yeah.
world in which your values can flourish?
Yeah.
But what do you do in a situation where your values are still there and still like it is a really hard problem, right? Do you have to say,
And Joseph, yeah, that problem, as you're talking about this, it's making me realize that it's echoed in other characters. And
sure, yeah, yeah, Mon Mothma, like her
Mon
daughter.
Mothma, when she's talking to Vel, and they're going up on that hike, and Mon Mothma is asking her, "Oh, what about you and your friend, your romantic partner, Senta? How is that going?" And Vel is like, "Bad timing. It was never going to be good."
Mon Mothma does it with her daughter too, like
Exactly. And
in
what
season
she
one.
says, okay, oh shoot. I wrote this down because this was an important quote that I think captures um the the challenge for Mon Mothma, and then that echoes through with Cassian too. And okay. So Vel says austerely, resolutely, kind of dismissing the idea that she and Senta's romantic relationship is important. There's work to be done. And Mon Mothma's response is, we have to live to do it, don't we? We
Hmm.
have to live to do it, don't we? We have to have these values. And as we learn with Vel's character arc, she's starting to see her values disintegrate as Senta doesn't barely acknowledges her, even though they're in the same planet. And we start to see it, as you pointed out, disintegrate with Mon Mothma, as she's basically got to let her childhood friend die, the person that she has seemed to have had the most simpatico out of any character. And then she's got to let her daughter go. When there's that circle of for the wedding, you know, Mon Mothma steps into it, but I think she's pretty much on the outs of her own family. So,
Mm.
and I think you're right that conflict, your personal values versus the cause, is being accentuated here. And this gets me maybe to Perrin's speech. Can I read Perrin's speech to you?
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know what, Perrin, you're my new hero. Saying somewhat facetiously. And the line that I just remember from Perrin last season, the one that made me kind of love to loathe him, was when when Mon Mothma is arguing with him about the dinner party and the imperial invitees that she has to deal with, and that she's gonna, all right, I'm angry at you, I'm gonna return this gift that I got for you, and he says, why does everything have to be so boring and sad? And what comes off as kind of just funny becomes now kind of a claim to life for him, a manifesto. And this is what he says in that speech to his daughter and his new son-in-law. He says, pain will find you. Trouble and disagreement will arise without summons. You simply stand still, and the galaxy will deliver a daily basket of fresh anxieties to your door without fail. What a line. I'll say that again. The galaxy will deliver a daily basket of fresh anxieties to your door without fail. My hope is that you learn to reach past this constant cloud of sadness. Pleasure, gaiety, amusement. These are the hidden things. The music found beneath all that noise. Joy, joy, joy. But joy has no wind at its back. Joy will not announce its arrival. You need to listen for it and be mindful of how fleeting and delicate it can be. But search out these treasures, a moment of pleasing sensation, the memory of laughter and good company, the comfort of a fine meal. And for me right now, it's the smile I cannot hide as I see these two young people sharing our greatest tradition. Mon Mothma does not have those joys. She is constantly served up anxieties and they eat at her. She is the audience, the one who needs to hear Perrin most from his perspective, but she's got a cause. So what I love about this is that Perrin could be portrayed as, oh, turning a blind eye uh to the real meaningful things that are happening in the galaxy, like and the Matrix, staying in the Matrix and eating red steak even though you know it's fake. So but instead, he's saying you got to be active to search these things out. The world is a terrible place and it's sad, but look for those happy things. And it sounds convincing. And I'm wondering if what's one of these big ideas that's being set up is that when you're fighting for the cause, you can't have these happy things. You can't have this joy. Because one of the things go ahead. I've got to follow up, but you don't hear what you say.
So I didn't have a positive reaction when I first heard that speech. And part of it was, I think there are elements that I find really engaging, but I thought it was, I think what stood out for me the first time were the specific concretes of joy that he was looking for that tended to be more on the hedonistic side of the spectrum, right? The sensations, the pleasures of life that you can look for, which I don't think is a valid um, application of joy. I think a lot of bad things happen when um, you focus on the wrong sort of sensation stimuli instead of the real deep values. Now it's a little hard. I don't know if that's totally fair because his last one is a beautiful sentiment, right? That he's,
Yeah.
going to pick up. And I certainly don't mean to suggest that you should not enjoy good food or laughter or whatever. I love those things. Um, so I need to think about that one more.
So I agree. He comes at it from the perspective of an aristocratic bon vivant. He's going to enjoy a fine glass of wine, and he's going to enjoy a good meal and those pleasures. He's going to enjoy those. But I think he is making a broader point that applies not just to his view of life, but that we see um, pick back up several times. So when he talks about the comfort of a meal, I flashed to the scene back on Mina Rao, the grain planet, and they're all sitting at this communal table enjoying this meal. And when we're thinking about this smile of these two that are being paired together, I'm flashing back to Will and Bila on the planet as they are like making eyes at each other and talking about seeing each other again. And what's interesting is that all these kind of little moments of joy that we see happening on Mina Rao on the Grain Planet with Bix and Will and Brasso, all those scenes are kind of immediately interrupted by a fresh anxiety. Uh-oh, what's that ship coming in? Is that an
Mm.
Imperial ship? Oh, who's coming down the road? Is that the Imperials? And so we're seeing those joys stopped up immediately. But it is something that they are searching for too. They want these joys. They want that communal table. And also, I think the last line that he's got, one of those joys is the tradition that has brought these two together. And for me right now, it's a smile I cannot hide as I see these two young people sharing our greatest tradition. We see so much of this wedding. We see the dance of the couple. We see the cutting of the braid and the joining of the circle. We see so much of it, and 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 Perrin enjoys it, and Lita wants to enjoy it, and that's why she's like upset that her betrothed doesn't want to hold her hand. I want to be part of it. She's eager to show that wedding dress. They are all about these joys, and I think though Perrin is For me, an episode season one parent is not the mouthpiece to talk about finding affirmation and joy. It seems like, whoa, he's got maybe a point here that those matter. Though he starts off with those words of finding sensations and gaiety and things, he does say, look for the music found beneath all that noise. And that fuels I Mon Mothma, who knows she cannot find the music beyond the noise. She is filled with the noise, and that's why she gets hyper drunk and tries to like dance her troubles away with all the music around her. But inside of her, there is no joy. There is just the anguish.
I mean, I keep contrasting that speech with Luthen's speech from season one because
Yeah,
I know I
yeah,
can't think of the exact words he says, but essentially he's intentionally snuffed out the noise. He has had to. Like the
no,
line that always stands
he's
out.
taken in the noise.
He's
The noise
made.
being like all the
Sorry,
sadness
sorry,
and
sorry.
everything.
The
Yeah,
music.
yeah,
He
yeah,
he
yeah,
he. The line I always
yeah,
love. He's made his life a sunless space,
yeah, yeah.
and so
That's brilliant. Yeah,
like
great
he.
contrast.
I think he said. And I think maybe this will inform the conflict with Cassian. I'll be interested to see if that's where they
Yeah,
go with this. But
yeah.
it's almost like he
Oh,
said. He said, if you have attachments, if you try and seek the joy, you cannot lead a rebellion, cannot fight a rebellion in that context. And I wonder, this might be projection, so bear with me. But one thing I've been just contemplating lately a lot is the significance of getting cause and effect right in pursuit of values. And if you make your aim joy, often you will not achieve it. And as an example, there's a lot of times where you have to work at some goal like certain things are consequences of certain work you put in, and the context of being able to enjoy life depends on some level of freedom you have. And so I do wonder if that's going to be the main lesson that they're going to have to learn is, yes, it's great to have relationships and enjoy traditions and all of those things. But those can only happen in an empire free universe. If you have this empire,
what I'm
you
worried about, Joseph, is that it's setting up. They're setting being set up in opposition to each other. So that that joy versus finding finding your true self in the fight for the empire, that is in that first speech, in that first conversation between Cassian and Naya, because Naya says, "I had fun here." When she's talking about her time, because she's going to be leaving this place forever, and she needs a 12-minute head start. I had fun here, and Cassian doesn't dismiss that. He says, "Yes." And we can kind of get a glimpse of the fun that she had when her like friend comes in and says hello pilot, and tells her he's kind of cute. So we she is abandoning these relationships, these joys, even in that little first scene, and what she's abandoning it for is to join this circle of individuals who are realizing that their true self comes in what they have always wanted, to fight this tyranny. And I think you're right. The Cassian is not quite there yet. That he's
and
not.
maybe that's going to be, my theory. Maybe this is a good context or way to wrap it. My theory with our theories of what's going to happen this season, I think he's going to lose each person one by one. I think he lost Brasso, and it's going to be like these things that have to drop one at a time for him to finally get. And you see that
Oh man.
style in
Oh,
season
Joseph,
one,
don't
right?
say things like that.
And you see that in season one, right? There are these clicks in the lock that have to.
Are you saying Cassian is going to become Luthen?
No, I think what I my hope. So you mentioned just now that you think they're putting it in conflict. I hope the arc is to realize that there is no conflict, but that there is a sequence. That it's not joy or rebellion. It's
Mm.
that you have to, you can't, the only kind of joy you think you're getting is just candy. It's just, yeah, maybe you can play along and get some superficial joys and keep trying to ignore the voice in the back of your head that like the oppression is getting bigger, that these horrible things are happening, that tyranny is growing while you get drunk, knowing that that's not real joy. I think I hope the arc is cannot experience true joy, contentment with the empire present, and that you have to have the sequence rebellion first, then
I
maybe
think
I get to enjoy
I
joy.
think you're right that it's you can't experience joy with the empire present, and I think we're seeing that on Mina Rao. Um, Cassian's friends are trying to kind of live a life, but once the empire comes in, people are going to turn you in, and it's
Or
going to
they'll
limit.
rape you, right? The lieutenant
Well,
tries
that
to.
people. Well, I mean, even the people that you were friends with are going to turn you in. Kellen. So this was a scene that was not obvious to me at first, but Brasso gets angry at Kellen because he realizes that the that that
Oh,
Kroll
I did not
guy.
read it that way. I think
So
Brasso was trying to save Kellen.
uh,
Brasso, I, rewatch. I think Brasso is trying to absorb. Like, okay, Brasso's been caught.
yeah,
He wants to protect Kellen by saying, "Oh, he turned me in," so that because Kellen didn't turn him in. I don't think the only reason they got Brasso is because he started to run. So I think Brasso was trying to um, play it off like they had no relationship. He's just a mechanic. Kellen turned him in. He's angry at Kellen so that he moves the because Kellen's been helping them the whole time.
that was a big hug that he gave Kellen earlier. Um, so I want to I
But
want to
sorry, that's a
rewatch
bit of a
that.
tangent. Yeah,
Yeah, but I
that's
think it kind
rewatch it.
of because I connected it with something else that Luthen told Mon Mothma, and he tells her when they're talking about the betrayal of Tay, that Tay is wants to hit her up for money and basically threatens her to reveal everything to Davos Golden that this is. And Luthen tells her, uh, people fail. That is our curse,
Mm.
and we need to clean it up. So that we need to clean up is my insertion, but people fail. That is our curse. And so I'm seeing to kind of give a summary now because we've been going for a bit. I'm seeing circles. I'm seeing broken circles and circles that are coming together. We've got the circle of the secret empire Gorman extermination group. We've got the uh, Chandelier circle that now Mon Mothma is out of. We've got also, I think, a circle of a new family with Edie and Dedra and Cyril, and the way that that's instituted is by intimidation. And we've got broken circles. We've got the broken circle of this Maya Pei brigade. We've got the broken circle of Mon Mothma. We've got the broken circle of this rebel alliance that is not together. And I think we need to have a new circle form, the circle that Cassian is trying to start when he tells Naya what gives this fight meaning, what makes it worth it, is when we have somebody like you make the decision to join our circle of those who are dedicated to give up their life to fight the rebellion. So, Joseph, I'm curious, kind of to wrap up here. We've hinted at it, but what are you looking forward to in terms of particular storylines or where we're hinted at going or some particular threads? What are you anticipating? What are you expecting? What are you hoping? What do you have questions about?
I think I'm most excited just to see where he takes us. Like I have so far, he's proven I mean, the Tony Gilroy,
Yeah,
the director and writer, that he has the ability to see things like an artist, right? To zoom in uh, with the microscope to pick out truths. And so we kind of know the destination a bit. We know that there is a rebellion that will unite, and we've got some seeds of conflict planted. And I'm really just excited because I actually just don't know the answer, and I don't want to try and speculate too much about what what does it take to unite a rebellion
yeah,
and to coordinate that, and I'm just excited to see him pick apart all of that and show us all those little details, right? What will go into uniting them? What is the cost?
yeah.
How will characters reconcile that cost? Um, I'm and so I'm just excited to see where he takes us on that journey.
Yeah, I am too. And you mentioned dominoes earlier, and so there are a couple of dominoes I'm interested in. The plot developments I'm interested in seeing where they go. So we've already mentioned like Dedra has signed up not to find access anymore, to give up access, but to be part of this group that's going to figure out a way to make it politically feasible to basically destroy a planet, extract all the minerals from it for the Death Star, and put the people there at risk, the 800,000 people that live there. And she's going to be in charge, and she's got a solution. Her solution is make it possible for an insurrection to happen that does the wrong thing. So that does things that will be that people won't like, and so that they won't have sympathy for the Gormans. Mon Mothma, back to season one, she's always had sympathy for the Gormans. So what is she going to do there on this planet? How is she going to use a rebellion on the planet against the goals of the rebellion? So I'm interested in that. I'm interested also in Mon Mothma. This is the first time that I think that we've seen her really accept that she is part uh, of a killing game. That she has chosen not to save her friend Tay. That she is letting him die, and that is part of the rebellion. So how is that going to affect her going forward? It seems like she's going to be in the outs, but I am very interested in the conflict what I think is going to be a conflict between she and Perrin. Perrin, there are many scenes that he seems to be observing and astute, and he could see like he's a weak man. Perrin is kind of turning out to be not just a flippant uh, aristocrat, but he seems perceptive and he has a credo, and that is the diametrically opposed credo to Mon Mothma's. So where is that going to go? And like you pointed out with Cassian, that urgency to save those close to him, the inner circle for him, the personal circle, the Theric circle that was broken at the end there. Is he going to be able to keep that? Because I mean, I imagine maybe he and Bix have something maybe more than than romantic relationship now. Their bond, I can imagine them being romantic. When she says my husband is away, I immediately think maybe that is true. But they're probably if they weren't part of a rebellion, they would be married. But they're still. This is the. I think she's the reason why he goes back. He instantaneously Brasso. He loves Brasso, but I think it's Bix. That's whom he saved at the end. There was his ex girlfriend that when he went off and did his like teenage phase of anger that got broken off. So I'm very curious to see where that Cassian Bix relationship leads. Will he hold on to that attachment? Because it sounds like he's not going to be a Senta and like push Vel away. So, and I want Edie to come back and oh, Cyril, I kind of like him. There's no small job if you dare. Oh, I can't wait to find out more of what's going on there. All right.
Yeah.
Final words, thoughts.
I'm excited to see what happens next.
All right, Joseph. Thank you very much. In the words of Partagaz, for a lively discussion, or it
Yes.
was a lively session. And and this is a lot of fun, and I picked up a lot of new stuff. Thank you,
Yeah.
Joseph.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Rick.
bye bye, everyone.